Yeah, so here we are on Dalid, fourth day of Elul. What does the Yom Yom tell us? First of all, it deals with a short halacha for those who are wearing a talis gadol and are called to the Torah. So the order of bruchas, so you're saying the brucha on the Torah, right, when you're called up. So with the talis, you touch the beginning and the ending of the reading that's going to be read. You kiss the talis where it touched the Torah. You roll up the Torah, turn your face slightly to the right, and say the brucha. And then the Torah is read. Okay, in the unique qualities of humankind, for all human beings, not just Jews, humankind, 4 descriptive terms are used. We have Adam, and what is Adam? It's the first description we see in the Chumash, Adam. Nasa Adam, let us make Adam. Adam refers to the quality of mind and intellect, right? The human being has a quality of intellect that's very different and superior to the quality of intellect over anything else in creation. Then there's Enosh. Enosh, it refers to, I skipped one. Ish. Adam Ish. Ish refers to the quality of heart and emotion. So we have mind, seichel, and leiv, intellect and emotion. Then we have 2 others. Enosh, also a name referred to a human being. This, he said, refers to weakness in either intellect or emotion, or both. And Gever, which is the 4th one, Gever means strong, who overcomes inner weakness and removes obstacles and hindrances to the attainment of an intellectual or an emotional quality. So what that means is Gever, which is strong, works upon Enosh, which is the weakness, and elevates that to the plane of either strength and predominance and fullness would be a good word in your heart and fullness in your mind. Fullness of heart and fullness of mind. Since it is possible to turn Enosh into Ish or Adam, right, the weakness, into something strong of heart, strong of mind, so it must be the case that within each and every one of us, Enosh and is to be found. We have this quality. All these same qualities found in Ish and even in Adam. So we have the capability. However, we have senses of something lacking in mind or heart. The Enosh quality is that weakness, and we can turn that Enosh into strength because we have innate qualities given by Hashem to us to be able to do it. So the question is, of course, how do you do it? How do you access those faculties? And the answer is avoida. It's something that takes work, and it's avoida. Avoida means, avoida, remember, is a lashon eved, someone who gives oneself over. It requires self-honesty and submission to the fact that I am not in the place that I have desired to be, but I know that I have capabilities within me to do it, and therefore I will develop them. And of course, the overarching path to development is Torah and mitzvahs, where you learn and infuse yourself with the teachings of God, and you give over yourself, which we'll talk about today, give over yourself to the practice of them. And it's the only way. I mean, physical plane as well. You want to develop strength, you have to exercise. You want to develop a capability that your heart is drawn to, you have to practice. So, back now into Tanya, talking to us about the practice. All right, lessons in Tanya, page 177, volume 4, lessons in Tanya, 177. And Huti Amorim, page 230, counting down from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The line begins with Lachain, and it's over on the left, Hine Iker Hatshuva. Why are we talking about Shuva? Okay, just remember a little context. We're talking about two levels of kindness. Chesed oilam, the kindness that Hashem does with the worlds in bringing them forth. He puts himself aside and he goes out of himself and creates worlds. And that's, of course, a metaphor for what we do. It's also related to our Tanya, to our Hayom. If you want to develop a new practice or strengthen an existing practice, you have to do something out of the norm. So that's what Hashem does. He puts himself aside, called Chesed Oilam. But we learned yesterday there's another level of Chesed. It's called Rav Chesed, great Chesed. And this is brought to the table when a person in mind, thought, or action involves oneself in things which are not in accordance with Hashem's will and needs to, and feels a need of, feels first of all, a sense of separation, a sense of existential loneliness, and wants to heal that. And the process of healing that is called tshuva, to return, to come back to the place you started from. The place you started from, a revealed godly soul. The place you may be in, a covered up godly soul. So return, start taking the covers off that covered up godly soul. That's called Shuva. And Shuva is called Chesed, Rav Chesed, because Shuva reaches up into the highest levels of Hashem. Now, why? I'm just saying just a little bit outside for a minute. What is that? Hashem has a quality of Ein Sof, infinity. He conceals that quality of infinity in the creation so the creation can have a sense of individual existence, but it's always there. Shuva is the same sense. Shuva is I'm separating from Hashem, meaning I'm much more focused now on my own stuff, my own satisfactions, etc., etc. I've separated myself a bit from my essence. When I return to my essence, that essence is a chelak elokah. It's a part of God above, which shares in the infinity, number one, and also activates Hashem's infinite levels, so that now Rav Chesed comes down from above. And Rav Chesed from above is what heals the world. It brings us the revelation of godliness into the world. So each and every moment that we have taken advantage of to come back to who we really are, and now is not the time to describe all the means for doing that, but to the extent that we do that, that's an equal and opposite reaction up above and brings Hashem out of his so-called hiding place and brings vast, big revelations of infinity down here below, which ultimately result in the Geula, in the transformation of all humanity, which is the reason why the Rebbe emphasized acts of goodness and kindness, not only on the familial level, but on the global level, because those acts of goodness and kindness where you go out of yourself brings Hashem out of his hiding place and brings redemption. So here we're talking further about this today. Okay, we'll start. V'hinei, ikar hatshuva, literally the root of returning, hu balev, it starts in the heart. Ki al yedei acharota ma'umka deliba, through regret, from the depths of the heart, the feeling of, I do not want to be in this place. I want to get out of this place. I want to return to a place of illumination. And I'm only saying return because we know from learning that it's a return. That's what tshuva is. Tshuva is tashuv, to return. So I want to return from that sense of separation. And I have a deep desire to return from that sense of separation, which is called harota ma'umka daliba, regret from the depths of the heart. Remember, ayomyo, the heart. The heart needs to be revitalized. The gever, the power needs to be brought to the heart to bring out the hidden dimensions of the heart, which are the godly dimensions of the heart. So, shuva, ma'umka daliba, and that, ma'oira, oimek or elyon hazeh. And when you return from, in even a small way, from separation to wholeness, from disconnect to connect, that reverberates up above and brings out Hashem's. It arouses Hashem's oimek, Hashem's depths, which is the Or Elyon Hazer, which is the supernal light that we've been speaking about. However, in order to draw those lights down, I do it down here below, and that doidi li, Hashem does it from above. In order to draw out those illuminations from Hashem, from the higher worlds to the lower worlds, it depends on us. Mamish. We have to do something. It's not enough to think about it. We have to do something. We want Hashem to do something. We want Him to bring the Geula, right? That He's got to do something. So we do something, and our doing down here below arouses His doing down here below. I mean, it's a gavaltic up above. It's a gavaltic thing to think about, that we have every act we make, every breath we take has the power to reverberate upward and draw down an equal and opposite, infinite, and aligned level of Hashem in the same way. So every moment, every opportunity we have is an opportunity, which we call the Geula Prati, to bring the personal redemption to ourselves, which influences the global redemption. So, and doing that with our deeds, the Hainu Ma'asehat Tzedakah, back to what is the essential deed, essential meaning the most symbolic and encompassing of all deeds, which embodies this notion of going out of your own limits, is tzedakah. You give yourself away. Tzedakah v'chesed b'li gvul v'midah. When you do acts of kindness in a manner of limitlessness and boundedlessness, of course, according to your own ability. And you have and earlier we said, when it comes to tzedakah, the first order of business is your family before everybody else. And you can't be foolish about this. But any act that you do that goes beyond your norm, brings down the drawings down from Hashem, which are so-called, quote, beyond His norm. The kamesha odam mashbiya rav chesed, just as a person gives more kindness. Or pirish. Now we're going to look at this word chesed. If you're looking inside or in your mind, it's three simple letters: ches, samach, daled. Chas is a word. Chas means pity or compassion. And daled is a word. A dal is a poor person. So the word chesed itself, this is a nice little meditation. Chesed, compassion on the poor. Compassion, going out of myself to deliver something that someone who is poor, meaning needs something and doesn't have, that's called chesed. To have compassion, chas, on the poor. Nahainu ledal, the evion, to a person who's poor or impoverished, the lesle began me klum, who has nothing. And there's no limit to this, to the amount of, whatever you can do, the most you can do. We put ends on it al pi halacha because you have to do it in the context of Torah, which is you're not allowed to impoverish yourself, give up your life when there's a possibility to share something which will give life to both of you. So you have to be aware of what the limits are of this, but at the same time, there is a huge room to go beyond your limits. So kacha kodesh baruch hu, when you go beyond your limits, kacha kodesh baruch hu mashpia ored v'tuvay b'bechinas chesed ilah. So Hashem goes out of His limits, as I mentioned before. And if you give more or greater tzedakah, He gives, or kindness, chas daled, compassion on the poor, chesed. So He does the same thing. And He goes out of His limits. And He exhibits and draws down chesed ilah, the supernal chesed, hanikra rav chesed, which is called the great chesed. Hamer b'vichinas ein sof. And what is that? That's the quality of light from God, which is an infinite light. He reveals the Or Ein Sof, bli gvul umida, without any boundaries and without any limitations. Toicha oilamis, into the world. This is Geula. And he brings that down, and that flows, of course, from the higher worlds of Yoinim, Tachtoinim, and down into the lower worlds. Shekulam Hemi Bechinas Dalit, because all the worlds are Dalit, the letter Dalit, poor. They're impoverished. Again, because they exist in a sense with a sense of separation and individuality, which is what we call worlds. They're being impoverished from. They're not able to, in the natural state, in the orderly state of things, they don't have access to the revelation of the infinite. But when we go out of our finite, limited states into a more broader state, that echoes up, reverberates up, and the Or Ein Sof, the infinite, is now exposed and revealed in the finite. So the worlds are in a state of limitation, compassion, of pity. Have pity on them. They need the compassion. The act of redemption now here is an act of compassion. It's like our redeeming someone from prison is an act of compassion, taking them out of what their limitations, the boundaries of imprisonment, and all the other metaphors you could use here. So we take Shekulim Heim Bebechinas Dalit. All the worlds are in a state in need of being redeemed from their poverty, from the darkness, from the obstruction of the Or Ein Sof. So we redeem them from the poverty. Etzle Yisbora, the Leis Lehen Megarmei Klum, by the effusion of the godly light, which has no limit at all. We're bringing something to those who are in need. Makula Kamei Kalech Hashivi. And all of these separate things from the Hashem's point of view, from the perspective of the Or Ein Sof, all of them are in front of him, meaning from the perspective of him alone and from his deep essence, like nothing. And through making them something, bringing them to be, and it's interesting, when you recognize a poor person, you're paying attention to that poor person, and you conveyed a communication of, you're something to me. You mean something to me. So when you go out of your limits with tzedakah and that reverberates upward, that reminds Hashem that we mean something to him and we need something from him, which is Geula. That's the shorthand. We need the all-pervasive expression of God's light, and that's the only thing that will bring peace, harmony, and perfection to this world. So, we're saying that we need that from him. Now back on the cosmic level and on the personal level, that fixes up all the blemishes, all the breakages, all the short circuits, all the place where the connections weren't made and can be made. With one act of tzedakah beyond your means, with your Rav Chesed, you extract from him his Rav Chesed. And that's Nisaknu Kol HaPagomim. It fills all the cracks, which a person may have created cracks, blemishes through his negative behaviors, Lamaila upstairs, in the upper worlds and in the lower worlds. And this is what's written in Pasuk in Mishle, in Proverbs. It says, it says that doing tzedakah and judgment, meaning abiding according to the rules of the Torah, is nivcha. It's more chosen, bachar. It's more chosen from Hashem than all the sacrifices, on the korbanos. Why? Because all the korbanos, as we learned the other day, in the notion of worlds, oilam, everything is in a manner of measuredness. And it's that we applied that to the korbanos also. Korbanos have a measure. And we went to a 2-year-old lamb, etc., or how much a fistful that's brought for the offering of grain, right? That's the korbanos. Here we're talking about going out of limits. So this tzedakah, beyond limits, this Rav Chesed that we can manifest in ourselves is much more pleasing to him because it's more connected with who he really is, which is limitless. Masha'enkim b'tzedakah, says he says, so which is not the case, this limitedness quality. With tzedakah, which you're able to disperse without boundaries, without limitations, to fix the blemishes that may have been made by your previous behavior. Amasha Omer, that's what it says in the Gemara Kesuvos. It says, Hamavazvez al yavazvez yaisim echaimish. Oh, here's the halacha, right? A person, yes, you should give excess tzedakah, but the halacha says don't squander more than a fifth. Now, that pertains in general, but he's going to say, think about this, and he's going to end today's Tanya with a little metaphor. Yes, normally the halacha is don't give more than a fifth. A tenth is the norm. A fifth is mitzvah min hamufcha. It's the better or more. It's a better way to do it. So he says, that applies to someone who has not disconnected himself from Hashem, which we call a sin. Or someone who wants to correct and fix a disconnect, a sin that you've made. This levuchim v'tainus, and you've gone through. This is something that we've talked about in the Geras HaTshuva, that self-afflicted punishments, what used to be done in the old days, or a voluntary fast, are not the part of Shuva. Shuva does not involve those things. These things are involved after the Shuva. If you really want to demonstrate to Hashem your excessive love out of the ordinary, so you could fast. And then the Alter Rebbe tells us in the Geras HaTshuva, in these days where we don't have strength to fast, we can do this kind of thing, this giving a gift to Hashem, so to speak, through extra tzedakah. Yeah, so you can do these things and make sure that these things that you're doing, which are extra and above, are in the confines of the rules of Torah, which meaning you're not, there is giving up your life to save a life, right? But that's the extreme that only applies when you're actually in a physical manner, when you can save somebody's life. But here we're talking about bringing something more to someone's life, improving someone's quality of life. That you're not allowed to give up your life for, because, as he says clearly earlier, your life and the life of your family are the first places where tzedakah begins at home and extends from there. So you have to be sane about this, right? And not go to more extreme than kiroi l'sakin kol hapagami l'mayla, anything more and above that which is called for. Aval, now on the other hand, do think about going a bit out of your means. And he gives a mushal for this. He says, Aval mi shetzorek l'sakin nafshe, one who needs a fix for his soul. So Adayin Peshita, so it's clear and simple if you think about it. The le gora rafuas hanefesh rafuas haguf, that healing the soul is not worse than healing the body. Meaning it's not secondary. In fact, in some cases, it's primary. But he's using this as a metaphor. If one has an illness, like olenu, what do? We don't really look at too much how much it costs, especially if it's a life-saving surgery or something, and I don't have the right medical plan, right? One doesn't think too much about that because life is at stake. So think about that. If your life is at stake physically and you're willing to go to extra measure to save it, how much more so if your life is at stake spiritually, meaning that your whole sense of mission and the purpose for which you were created, which is to bring Geula, is at stake. And then we talk about, Geula, personal Geula, as well as global Geula. You'll do it. Give whatever you can. V'chol asher, as it says, v'chol asher le'ish yitin ba'ad nafshe. A person will give anything and everything to save his life. That's what's written in Eov, in Job. And that's the end of today's time. The idea of Rav Chesed, the going out of our boundedness, our limitations in our relations with ourselves. In other words, what do I need to fix? I'll do everything to fix it. In our relationship with the ones we love and who are close to us, what does the other person need? Instead of just thinking about what I need, I want to put a smile on the face of somebody else. What can I do? And transmit that and just expand that to a global scale. All of that, from the smallest to the the microcosm of the home to the macrocosm of the world at large, To the extent that we go out of ourselves, that brings God out of himself, and he exhibits and shows us the Rav Chesed, the great kindness, which is the Geula Shlema. That's today's Tanya. Comments? Questions?
I don't know. What's coming to my mind is the image of Boaz and Rus.
Okay. Let us hear.
Because Boaz had so many reasons to just be within himself. His wife had died a week ago. It was the first day he comes back to the field. He's a leader of the entire generation, a very wealthy, prominent person. He's not young. Like, it was a time that he could have said he's giving up from life. And Rus is a convert from Moab. This was someone, like, when we're talking about chesed, like this, she didn't have anything going for her as far as a Boaz wanting to help her. And when we say that it connects to Geula, it does, because Mashiach will come from that act of chesed.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And, and it had an eternal dimension. Her, like Boaz reaching out to Rus, had an eternal dimension. Like, you know, there could be so much written about Boaz. He accomplished so much in his life. You know, we talk about like wanting to have a big audience or something. He was a leader of the generation. He was a prophet. That does not have an eternal dimension. Like, we don't talk about that. He has 2 lines in Sefer Shoftim. What we talk about every year is this reaching out, this chesed. That's what we talk about every year.
Roger, why don't you write the book?
Yeah. Huh? So this is it. Just each of us. You know what? There's 2 books we write. We write a book, and then we write with our lives. Our lives will be a book.
Okay.
You know, our actions will be written by Hashem. Every day our actions are written by Hashem. What does it say? This lecture is in Hashem's book, because it's to increase our avodas Hashem. I don't know. There was also this beautiful story about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was not Rebbe then. This was going on in France during the war, where there was an orphanage, and the orphanage really didn't have food. And every day the Rebbe would come and bring bread.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
And he didn't even say his name. He said, just call me Mansour.
Sure, yeah.
And there was someone who survived and met the Rebbe decades later, and he didn't realize, and he wanted to meet the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he comes in and he looks at the Rebbe and he says, You're Mansour.
Right. Thank you. We're going to end now. I don't think anyone else has a hand up. So let's continue this tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.